What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to another installment of Nebraska Cornhuskers Live. We are here at Rutgers Week, and I see a couple of you already in the chat. We're going to get to some of the comments here in a little bit. We're going to break down Rutgers, recap Purdue, maybe talk about some PFF rankings that have people talking, and just kind of dive into it from there. So make sure to drop your questions in the chat, drop your score predictions as we dive more into this. I don't know why I always have my live stream up in the background. It just starts playing in my ear. There we go. Okay, all fixed. I do that every single week. All right. So let's go ahead and let me put this at the bottom. All right, cool. Let me run a show here. So I don't know if you all saw my Rutgers preview, but I'm going to dive into a little bit of what Rutgers is and actually is. I think there's this common misconception right now about Rutgers, what we thought Rutgers was coming into the season versus what they are now. And whenever I talk about Rutgers, in my last video, I mentioned Rutgers being kind of in a way who we thought they would be. And it's the way they're going about winning games, right? But some of the issues that they have also on the defensive side of the ball, in the offensive line department, are things that Nebraska can take advantage of. We think about Rutgers as this very physical team, which they are, but there are opportunities there on their defense that we'll get into because Washington had an excellent game between the 20s. They had an excellent game, but they had some missed opportunities. And what Rutgers is going to do, they're not going to beat themselves. They're going to take advantage of those missed opportunities. And so Nebraska's going to have to capitalize. I'm also going to get into a little bit of their offensive philosophy and their defensive mindset and kind of how they're running that defense to counteract, because they are scheming their defense up in a way to counteract some of the flaws and issues that they may have in terms of talent, overall talent. So, but if you're stopping in here, of course, my name is Justin Adams. I am a content creator here at Nebraska Football, the voice of college football, the content creator here at Nebraska Football, the voice of college football. So if you like what I'm doing here, drop a like on the stream, gets more people in here, join the conversation, and we can go from there. So Jackson, what's going on, man? Appreciate you hopping in here first, as always. Jackson Johnson. Oh, happy belated birthday to Jackson, by the way. So if you're in here, wish Jackson a happy birthday. I think his birthday was yesterday. So Fongwei, after 5 games, I'd have to say my prognostication for this team is very solid. Fongwei, I think we might disagree a little bit there. But I'm curious. Drop your comment. Let me know what your prognostication was and where you think kind of Nebraska is falling short of that, because I should be curious to know. You'll see Rutgers coach Presser do nothing but good things to say about it. Schiano. So Schiano is one of my probably favorite coaches in college football. He is the perfect coach for Rutgers, of course, but he's very much like this, right? He's business, and he's not going to take anybody lightly. He's going to be respectful, right? And he sees a lot of the good in this team. And that's the thing that I think a lot of Nebraska fans were focused on the negative. But Schiano's sitting here game planning how to go against our strengths. So he's seeing our strengths, and he knows what this team is and what they're capable of. And the Illinois loss seems to, in certain special teams issues, have Nebraska fans, rightfully so, kind of just a little bit skeptical about things. Fongwei, you might be one of them. But Schiano was dead on a lot of the things that he said overall. And then I'm sure a lot of you, happy belated Jackson. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen, again, the Hudson Card PFF grade 2. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit. I'm also going to go through the PFF grades for Rutgers versus Nebraska and kind of line up some of the stuff that I was talking about before. But first things first, let me just dive a little bit into kind of what I talked about yesterday. Let me get my notes here on the Rutgers offensive game plan, right? I'll be fairly brief on this. But the Rutgers offensive game plan is simply their system is very much like their defensive system, right? And this is how Rutgers is very good at making up for, I'm going to say, inferior talent, right, against a lot of teams. Because when Rutgers came into the Big Ten, it was a question, like, why is Rutgers in the Big Ten? They don't make a lot of money. East Coast team, the whole nine, not good at football. But what they've been able to do there with the lack of talent has been a lot of coaching. It's basically the entirety of it is development and coaching, right? And so what their game plan is offensively and defensively, it's trying to mask the flaws that they have in talent by again, it's kind of like the 3-3-5, right? Nebraska lacked a lot of team speed and discipline and certain things last year. And the 3-3-5, the way it was schemed up and dialed up, it was able to mask a lot of that, but really play into a lot of these guys' strengths. And that's what Rutgers tries to do offensively and defensively. So offensively, their their offensive coordinator has, he's very much a methodical game planner in terms of he's going to coach as the game goes along. And I know that happens in every single game. But what I mean by that is he's going to take it on a play-by-play basis, right? And he talks about advantages versus disadvantage and playing to your advantage, right? So let's say they got 7 men in the box. Okay. Well, he's then going to, well, they're a disadvantage in the box. If they got 5 blockers to 6 defenders, 7 defenders, well, then, okay, we're not going to run an outside zone. We're not going to run an inside zone. We're going to attack the outsides. We're going to go to an out route. We're going to go to a hitch. We're going to do something to spread this box out and put ourselves in an advantageous situation. Um, and the way he, kind of breaks it into categories. He has 3 categories, and it's Kirk Soroka is their offensive coordinator. And he has a lot of Big Ten experience. He's been in the Big Ten before Rutgers. He was at Minnesota before 2022. He's been there at Rutgers the last 2 seasons, but he's at Minnesota before. So he's also with Ethan Kaliak-Manis over there. But he goes into 3 different categories, and he talks about ball, which is 1, execution, and violence. Okay. Now, when he's talking about ball, it's ball security, right? And Rutgers does a good job at taking care of the football. Again, they're not a team that's going to beat themselves with penalties. They're not going to beat them. They're going to take advantage of your mistakes. So they're not going to try to do too much offensively. They're going to stick to what they know, and that keeps them from making a ton of mistakes, right? They don't stress themselves to a point where they're having to force stuff. However, I'm curious to see what happens if Nebraska can get an early lead on Rutgers, which is one of my keys to this game. Execution. So he talks about ball execution and violence. So on the execution side of things, it's alignment, assignment, and technique, right? Are we aligned to where we need to be, right? Let's say it's a quick hitting, RPO pass. Well, if you're not where you need to be, if you're not in your spot already, well, you're not going to be in a position to make that play if it's coming your direction, right? So alignment, assignment, sticking to your assignment, right? Not having to, and this is where Nebraska struggled against Illinois. Some guys had missed assignments, and then other defenders would have to kind of, carry over into those assignments to double up and help both. And that got Nebraska out of position a lot. So, then the violence is just finishing the play. He says you're either engaged in a block, you're chasing the play, or you're leading the play. Simple as that. So, they're about execution, finishing the play, and taking care of the ball, and that's their 3 pillars. And he breaks the violence into three phases: early, which is strike first; middle, which is straining the defense. So, for instance, putting as much strain as possible to create little openings. Like if you get an extra 4 inches of daylight on a run because of something you did to set that up, well, that could be the difference between no gain and a long run, right? And then the middle part, of course, is going to be, oh, sorry, that was the middle part. And then the finish in the play, of course, you're gauging the block, you're chasing the ball or leading the ball. It's complementary football, and they set everything up in a very specific way. They each play. The hard thing about it is each play is designed similarly, and everything looks the same off of certain looks. Illinois did this a lot. When I went back and watched the film, Illinois, what they did was they set up, that touchdown to number 85 out of the back of the end zone. They set that up throughout the game, but whenever he was blocking, they motioned him over a lot. But whenever he was blocking, it looked very similar everywhere else to when he was running a route. And it also looked very similar to when they were running the ball and he was blocking, right? So that put the linebackers on their heels, Nebraska's second level, because at that point, then they were kind of on the fence about, um, you know, should I attack here? Should I back up? Because there's no tells. They were given no tells on what the play potentially could be because they were designing everything, the blocking schemes and everything identically. Um, and so he talks about that, like manipulating the play based on the number of people in the box, um, and then attacking dual responsibility players. So guys who, will need to kind of, for instance, John Butler, Purdue on that Tampa 2 look. What they were trying to do with John Butler there is clear all of the defenders out and be able to attack that middle of the field on that pick six where John Butler had in that Tampa 2. And what they did there was they tried to bring a route over from the right side of the formation when you're looking at it, but the left side of the formation, with the direction they're facing, they bring him across. They bring that outside receiver, that slot receiver across and kind of set him down in the middle, but they also brought the running back out of the backfield and had him sit down right past the line of scrimmage. And what they were trying to do there is attack dual responsibility where he has to make a choice, and they expected him to see that running back down there in front of him. They expected him to think that middle backer would be able to get in position or be in a position, or that right backer would be in a position to come over and maybe make a play. But they're trying to get his eyes on that running back so he reacts, and they can just dump it right over his head for, that middle of the field play. And that's kind of dual responsibility. Attacking dual responsibility players is making them bite on something so you can set up something else. And then it's a lot of run pass options and run action passes, which are two different things. But also they play off of the major run scheme that Rutgers likes to run with Kyle Monungai, and we know just how good Kyle Monungai actually is. So it's attention to detail. Again, when they run a slant to the right side in an RPO, it looks the same as their outside zone. If they're running a fake outside zone to an RPO, it looks identical. So Nebraska's eyes are going to have to be disciplined. They're going to have to watch the ball, and that is the recipe for success. They are not going to be able to just pick up on it by formations, by watching certain individual blockers, certain individual players. They're not going to be able to scheme up that stuff or bite on that. They're just going to have to keep their eyes where they need to be, which is on the ball in the backfield. And so that Rutgers is going to try to really work a lot of the same things that Illinois had success with. And that's why I think the Illinois game and having that on film might really help and be a recipe for success in this game, because they had those mistakes on film. They were able to kind of, see where they were lacking, what they were doing wrong. And the coaches got an idea of, what they did wrong in terms of play calling. And that negative on film is the best, most valuable film that we've had all season, because I think this is the next game where we see if Nebraska has made that step from Illinois in his Rutgers game, because naturally Purdue didn't really tell us too terribly much. So another thing too, they're going to attack your alignment on the outsides, and they're going to watch where your cornerbacks are being positioned. So if you press and play heavy on the inside, they're going to go on a go route or a back shoulder throw. If you're an off corner and you're heavy inside, they're going to do the run action pass, right? Corners, the corners that sit hard inside, they'll run a double move or a corner route. And so positioning is going to be very important to this game, and Nebraska could potentially use that to their advantage to try to get, some kind of maybe turnovers and try to bait some looks as well and make Ethan Kaliakmanis think. That's the biggest thing, is make Kaliakmanis have to think, go through progressions, and put him in a position to make mistakes, because when he's just flowing in the game plan, he's a good enough quarterback to where he can just nickel and dime, right? And that's all he needs to do in certain situations. But if Nebraska puts stress on him, mix up the fronts, make him go through his progressions and be able to get pressure without, the thing about Illinois that made it difficult is, since they were on their heels, they weren't able to pin their ears back and really go after the quarterback, because you're worried about every time we would send an extra person or two, right, they'd have a quick pass ready over the top. Again, what Rutgers is going to be looking to do. Now, let me get in some of your comments here before I kind of transition over to the defensive side of the ball. So let's see here. I'm indifferent. Plenty of things that are still troublesome. False starts by eighth-year starters, boneheaded penalties, regressive kicking game, poor line play. Okay. Yeah, false start. Yeah, the penalties. The penalties very, very bad, very bad. I'm a Texans fan as well. Texans had 12 penalties in their win against Jacksonville. They somehow won. And Laramie Tunsil has 6 or 7 in 2 games. 7. Okay. So yeah, that's frustrating, and I get it from both teams. So false starts by eight-year starters, boneheaded penalties, regress kicking game, poor O-line play. Yeah, and the O-line play, a lot of that situational too. Because the whole situation with Mazuka and just the injury coming into the season and the lack of depth there. So I see what you're saying in those regards as well. So yeah, true on that. I just for the entirety of the year so far, though, looking at what last year versus this year, and again, when Scott Frost left in 2022, when Matt Rule came in, one of the things I said coming into last season was I wasn't going to measure success on wins. I was going to measure success on a list of things that were broken under Frost and list of things that are broken in year one under Rule, and did that list improve? And how much did it improve? And it improved pretty significantly. Now, the list from last year to this year, it has also improved in the main areas, but those things do need to be cleaned up. The discipline, the execution, those are things. But again, we're in year 2 under Matt Rule. The discipline, the execution, that type of stuff will continue to improve. But I agree, it's gotta get fixed ASAP. Our game's on October 5th, supposed to be 94 degrees. That just ain't right for October. Yeah, that's no joke. I went out there one time. Dang, I can't remember which game it was, but I was wearing all black. It was like one of the hottest days that they had. It was a September game, one of the hottest days they had. It was like 115 field level. And I was like 7 rows up, but I wore all black. I wore black joggers, a black jersey, black hat, and I was sitting I was cooking right in the sun, man. I tell you what, team speed, more playmakers. Yeah, I can agree with that. One more positive, far fewer turnovers. Yeah, very much so. What's up, Justin? I appreciate you hopping in here. Along with the penalties are as much on the refs as they are us. They've been calling some real ticky-tack penalties, like a PI. And that's another, and I talked about this too on I think it was my post game. It's really hard right now to look at penalties and look at box scores and look at those type of deals and see how much of this is discipline versus how much of this is bad calls. Unless we go back every single game and vet the penalties, it's hard to know. So I think the biggest ones that we know for sure we need are pre-snap infractions and legitimate holds, right? And of course, I know the officials have been bad for Nebraska, but they have absolutely been horrible across the board in college football this year. It is bad. It is bad. They've been terrible in every game. I don't think they're against us. I don't know. I just think the refs are kind of doing a little too much this year. Hey, Party Pipples, go Big Red. What's up, Party Pipple? I appreciate you hopping in here, Pits Night, by the way. Let me see. Correct me as necessary. Justin Bullocks is playing his butt off, but his eye discipline gets him into trouble a fourth quarter in OT versus Illinois. Yeah, so dude, Bullock, credit to Bullock, man. He's been incredible. He was the highest graded defender according to PFF last week. But I kind of showed a couple of times on film against Illinois, kind of where Bullock was, a little step to the left or a little step to the right. The thing about Bullock that I love, because I think eye discipline was a problem for the entire defense. And I think Bullock was one of those players that kind of had to almost cover down in a way for some of the other areas of responsibility that weren't being protected. But the thing about him is, if he misses a play, he's going to go try to make a play. For instance, that strip, right? The strip on that play, they had a completed pass right over the middle, and he got back on and he stripped it out of his hands. So the one thing I like about Bullock is his mentality and the little mistakes that he makes. he learns from and he recovers from. And last week, he looked much better. And he talked about on that Tampa 2 look, of course, how it showed up a lot on film and he was put in a good position for that. But that is also part of learning from that Illinois game, because he knew he was ready for that play. He knew that they were going to run that play. Um, and he was in position for it. And when he talks about being in Tampa 2 and cover 2, and I explained this a little bit yesterday, Tampa 2 essentially is you have 2 press man corners in the outside. You're going to have 3 linebackers over the top, and you're going to have 2 safeties covering the deep halves. Now with cover 2, the hard part about cover 2 is you have 2 deep halves, right? So they're covering, the entirety of the field, 2 people. So that middle of the field, especially, intermediate level, middle of the field is open. Our deep middle of the field's open on regular cover 2, but in Tampa 2, you have that middle linebacker who's dropping back kind of almost into that middle third. And so it does leave a little susceptibility for that intermediate passing game over the middle. And you got to have, a linebacker who can get some speed and coverage ability to get back. But that was a look they were trying to take advantage of in that Tampa 2. And so, it's one of those things where I'm not the biggest fan of cover 2 or Tampa 3. I think I talked about this before with BA on here. I'm more of a cover 3, cover 1 type of guy, but it works and they're learning from it, right? And that's the biggest thing is like, as long as I have no problem with somebody making mistakes, but if they look at the film and they learn from it, that to me is the sign of a great player, and Bullock has done just that. But yeah, I agree. The eye discipline across the board as a whole was pretty rough on that one. And in his defense, to his side, that was where they were kind of running some of that motion over to his side, and he had to the strong side of the field, and he had some serious areas of responsibility there. So penalties I'm concerned about, though, are due to that great gulf, which is located between the 2 ears. For some, that distance seems all too far. That is true. Just got liquor, smoking, groceries. I'm stoked. I'm sipping a drink, enjoying my Tuesday night ritual. I appreciate you being here. Green all points. Bullock did improve last week. Appreciate that, man. Let's go ahead and dive into now. I want to dive into a little bit of what defensively they're going to try to do, and then I'll get into a little bit of the PFF rankings. And for what it's just so y'all know, Aaron Brightman, who's a Rutgers analyst, I'm going to be recording with him tomorrow, so I'll have a preview coming for that, and then also on my second channel, the Big Ten Show, I'll go ahead and just drop the link here for y'all. I'm going to be doing a Rutgers live watch party with my co-host. So we did this for the Illinois-Nebraska game because he's an Illinois fan. I'm a Nebraska fan. We're going to try to do this every single week now. So I'm going to drop the Big Ten Show link in here for y'all. I'll make sure it's the right, I got the right channel for you. That would help. Yeah. So the Big Ten Show right here, you can jump in there, subscribe, and watch the game with us if you'd like as well. So it's a good time in there. You can see my reactions, which are sometimes good, sometimes bad, but I'm a different animal when I watch the games. So yeah, stop by and join us there. It'll be a good time. So now let me go ahead and get into the defensive side of the ball here. Let me pull up my defensive notes here. I don't know why I put them on 2 different worksheets. I'm weird the way I operate sometimes. But one of the biggest things about their defense, right? And this is kind of what I'm talking about, the area where we thought they were going to be better than they are, but they've struggled due to lack of talent, due to inexperience is another big one. Last week, Washington had, if you look at the box score, Washington had over 500 yards of offense, right? And I'm going to pull that up for you right now. They had over 500 yards of offense. Now, Washington, this is not good for Nebraska in terms of taking advantage of this. Washington was 1 for 4 on field goals in the game. And Rutgers actually had a field goal blocked. They called 12 men on the field for Washington, which negated it, gave them a first down, and they scored a touchdown off of it. Again, taking advantage of missed opportunities and mistakes. But those are things, right, that would have won Washington the game. All right, I'm going to pull this up here, and I'm going to show you, let's see, pull up the Rutgers game here. All right, so looking at this, you go to, first off, I want to point out this win probability because this is exactly what a Rutgers win probability looks like, right? They're going to slowly beat you, right? And even though you punch back, right, they're going to punch back harder and they're going to keep punching until they get the knockout blow. So Nebraska is going to have to land a blow early and try to be able to get that. But here's the box score: 521 total yards for Washington, 299 for Rutgers. No turnovers, 23 first downs for Washington, 15 first downs for Nebraska. Time of possession, Washington won barely, but basically deadlocked. So there's the thing about their defense, right? It is susceptible. They do have issues, and those issues are the way they scheme those issues up and the way they try to make up for those. For instance, the lack of a pass rush. I don't think they had one tackle for loss last week. I think they had 0 tackles for loss, 0 sacks, 14 total missed tackles by 11 different players. Now, what they do is they're going to try to funnel the player and the ball towards other players for help, right? And this is why Washington only had 18 points with all that offense, because they're going to limit the explosiveness of the play, right? So they're going to try to keep everything in front of them, and they're going to try to funnel you to, being gang tackled, so that way you can't break 90 yards for yard after the catch, right? They may give up completions, they may give up yards. When we talk about Chinander talking about bend, don't break, that's kind of what this Rutgers defense is, except Chinander's defense at UCF did it by turnovers. This defense really does it by tightening up in the red zone. And where the flaws are, they don't have a lot of team speed on defense, right? And so in this modern era of college football, the 3-3-5 is a defense that's designed specifically to keep up with the faster paced offenses in college football currently. Rutgers kind of has a struggle in terms of keeping up with the spread offense. That's another reason why they struggle with missed tackles. They're giving up a ton of yards. But when that, that team speed and all that, but when that gets tightened up, they also have a lot of inexperience and misassignments on the cornerbacks. Their cornerback depth is an issue as well. But, a lot of inexperience showing in that secondary as well. So, but when they get tighter in those 20s, right? It's a different game between the 20s and it is in the red zone. When they get tighter in those in the red zone, everything is shortened. The field is smaller, right? And that's where Rutgers thrives. And Matt Rule specifically talked about in his presser that Nebraska has to get better scoring in the red zone, which we do. And that is going to be a huge factor in this, because Washington was unable to score. They were able to get yards, they were able to move the ball, but it doesn't matter if you can't score points. And so Nebraska is going to have to be able to figure out their play call. And a lot of this is due to play calling when we get inside. I'm telling you, the play calling that we do sometimes on the goal line, it's questionable. I do like some of the concepts, right? Like the passing concepts that they used, for instance, the throw to Jamal Banks against Rutgers. Again, that's just testing the defense. So what they did was they had 3 receivers on the right side. They had Fedoni and I forget who else. They ran a hitch. They went right to the end zone and ran a hitch. And then Jamal Banks was coming through as well, but they stopped at the hitch, and they had 4 defenders on that side of the field to cover, and Nebraska had 3 receivers. So on those 2 hitches, 3 defenders sat down on those hitches, and the 4th one was kind of coming down to it, and Jamal Banks just split to the back of the end zone, ran across, and by that time, the defensive back was chasing, and so that was a good design play call. The other one, the week prior, I think it was, where we had almost like a flood levels concept to the right side, where you had a guy motion across going in the flat, you had the running back going a little deeper in the flat, and then you had Isaiah Nair coming left to the back of the end zone. So all the routes were going right, and then you had Isaiah Nair going left in the back of the end zone. And basically it was just a great timing throw by Dylan Raiola, because there's going to be a window that it's just a small window that opens up there, because as those defenders go right, Nair's going left, there's going to be a slight window before he gets to that left side of the field to those guys covering the left side of the field. You get all those middle defenders and everybody going right. and then that middle of the field has a slight opening, and it's a timing thing, and Raul timed it perfect. I like some of the passing concepts, but I think some of the play calling gets very, very, very predictable down there. So I think that can improve. Overall, Satterfield's taken a lot of heat. I really like Satterfield, but I'm going to get into my issue with him in just a second when I get Nebraska's offense. So, talking a little bit more about Rutgers defense. They struggle getting pressure with just their front four. And so Raiola's probably going to have time in the pocket. Again, they didn't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They didn't get any sacks last week. So unless they dial it up and really bring hats to the ball, which if they do, that's going to open up the passing game as well. So there's a blessing and a curse there if Rutgers can't get home with their front four. So and like I said, the bigger field's a struggle for them, but they have the second best red zone defense in the country. So you look at Washington putting up over 500 yards, but they have the second best red zone defense in the country. So, and Rule talked about it. He said, you face some teams like Rutgers who don't give up explosive plays. They make you earn it. Coach Shiano doesn't give up explosive plays. They're going to play quarters. They're going to make you earn it. They will pressure you. We're built like we want to pressure. We want you to pressure us. We get the ball out of our hand, et cetera. Now, when he's talking about pressuring you, I don't know what he's talking about QB pressure, but I don't, looking at the Rutgers film and watching it back, I don't see that. I'm going to dive in some of your comments here. One more point kind of on the Satterfield thing here with his offense. Here's the issue that I have with Satterfield. And I've talked about this before, but with Marcus Satterfield, there's this, his play calling is excellent, right? I like his play calling, but the identity is what I have an issue with. And what is this team's identity, right? Is this a team that wants to run the ball and sustain drives, or is it a offense that wants to be explosive and score quickly? There was a point in the Illinois game in the third quarter where Illinois had a sustained drive, right? And Nebraska came back, scored in 3 plays, which I'm not mad at a scoring, but then that put the defense right back on the field. And when we're in the live watch party, I was like, I hope we didn't score too fast because our defense didn't get a rest, right? And so that's, there are those opportunities where I would like, Nebraska to sustain more drives, to be able to give their defense a little bit more of a rest, especially in a physical battle. And that was part of the problem, I had against Northern Iowa. Our time of possession was Northern Iowa dominated time of possession, right? So we weren't really practicing those sustained drives, and that showed up in the Illinois game. I think we need to be better situationally. I think Rutgers is very good situationally. I think Nebraska has to be better situationally, and find that identity of their offense. Also, Emmett Johnson, right? Emmett Johnson is a guy that I have said since his offseason was the best running back on this team and needs to get touches. And I have no idea why he hadn't been getting touches. And he needs to get touches against Rutgers. He needs to be the focal point going against Rutgers, in my opinion. Because I love Dante Dowdle and he runs excellent, but there's a combo that can be had there. I think those two need to be 1 and 2 because Dowdle is like allergic to running around people. He just wants contact, right? Which I love. I love that. But Emmett Johnson's going to make you miss, and he's going to make you miss in a phone booth. He's going to make you miss in space. He's going to make you miss between the tackles, right? He's 5'11", over 200 pounds. So he's kind of big enough to be able to kind of go into the interior of the line, but he's also quick enough with his feet and explosive enough to be able to make you miss and get that step and get that acceleration and get to the next level. And he's had the most explosive runs of all of our running backs this season, and he's had the least amount of carries out of the top 3. So let me get into some of your comments. Going to tune in Andy at CN later. Never mind. Sorry, I'm just reading these. Hey, what's up? Locked on Illini in here. Yep, Big Ten show there. Sonny, appreciate you dropping that in here. Sonny from Locked on Illini is my co-host on the Big Ten show, so I appreciate you dropping that in there. So again, if y'all want to get over there, oh wait, I dropped the link to YouTube Studio. I'm an idiot. I don't think you are going to be able to get into that one. So appreciate you correcting that for me. And he always posts a notification last minute. Truckload coolant. Well, then, oh, there's Sonny. I appreciate you, Sonny. Great analysis on Rutgers. Good job. Pound the rock, pass when you loosen them up, pound the rock again, bend but don't break defense, play discipline. 100%. Yeah. Um, just don't beat yourself. It's a, kind of like Iowa. Iowa's very sound, methodical. They know what they need to do. And the problem is, I think the thing that Rutgers is very good at identifying, they know their strengths and weaknesses. Um, they don't try to venture too far into their weaknesses or stress into their weakness. They play to their strengths and they don't let teams get them out of that too much. And that's what's got them to 4-0. Nobody has been able to get them out of that and make them uncomfortable enough to really be able to pull out a win for sure. The difference between Rutgers last year and this year is Calic Manis. He might not be elite, but he has enough of an arm to pick apart a defense if you want to load the box. And that's the biggest thing. Calic Manis is 2-0 against Nebraska for all we've said about him. But Calic Manis this year has been much, much better. But Minnesota was just not good, right? That team, you look at Minnesota now, they're not a good team. Rutgers is playing to his advantages, playing to his strengths. And I think that's the advantage that Kirk Soroka has with him being at Minnesota with Ethan Calic Manis before coming over to Rutgers, because then he knows him. He's been a part of his development, and he knows how to play to his strengths, and that has been key. Like I said, Calic Manis, he's not gonna beat you by ad-libbing on a play too much, but you give an opportunity to throw a pass for 10, 15 yards, he's gonna take what the defense gives him, and he's gonna try to be efficient, but he's not gonna turn the ball over. He's not gonna make mistakes. But yeah, that's the thing right there. If you load the box, that's what happened against Illinois. We're in a position where Illinois was running the ball well enough to where Nebraska had to load the box in certain situations, and then they would just be able to pass off of that. If you load the box, again, Rutgers is going to play to their advantage, and they're going to play to the numbers, and they're going to take advantage of your disadvantage, or their disadvantage by throwing to the outside. Stack the box, we're going outside. You come down in the box, we're going to throw over the top of you. That type of system. And so I like it. It's a great system, and that's where the coaching comes into play, right? All Rutgers is is a lot of really, really good coaching behind some pretty good. I mean, Kyle Monunga is the best running back in the Big Ten, one of the best in the country. That dude is a load to bring down. Not only that, he can make you miss. He's quick, right? He can juke you out too. So he's going to be a problem. And the thing is, Nebraska's run defense has to be better, just because Illinois didn't have a running offense coming into that game, and they were still able to run the ball because they took Nebraska out of the box and with those passing situations. So it's very well schemed up. Special teams coach is only certain fans' hot seat, but no rules. Yeah, Ed Foley is struggling badly. Not sure everybody's take on that, but I'm pretty sure the general consensus is to fire him. So let me go ahead and pull up the PFF grades here. I want to just compare Nebraska versus Rutgers in terms of their PFF grades. And I'm also going to talk about the Hudson Card being ranked the highest quarterback in the Big Ten last week, albeit in a loss to Nebraska. But I'm going to break down kind of how these PFF grades work, especially the quarterback position. All right. So, by the way, if you haven't yet, please drop a like on the stream. Like I said, it really helps me out. Drop your comments in here. I'll be getting to those again as the show goes along. So we got points for, points against, 154 to 140 to 61 to 65. So very similar there. The overall grade, see it, offensive grade, passing grade, pass block grade. So, Rutgers has had their issues in terms of their offensive line as well. I'm going to actually let me bring that back. I'm going to open this in a new tab so I can get to that in just a second. Okay. But their offensive line, when they are working and on the plays that they do execute, well, they're a load. It's going to be a mixture of Nebraska's fronts is really going to have to be creative, and Tony White's really going to have to scheme this up pretty well. Receiving grade, very similar. Run grade, actually very similar. Run block. See, there it is. 86.4 run block for Rutgers, 68.1 for Nebraska. Defensively, 86.9 to 80.6. Run defense, you see there. Oh, sorry, let me continue. Pass rush, you see Rutgers struggles generating a pass rush. And then special teams is there. Now, looking at Rutgers kind of over the course of this season, and we can kind of see how they've done against certain competition. So you got Virginia Tech and Washington, which the Virginia Tech game was 3-point game. And the Washington game was also a 3-point game. So they're the toughest opponents. And you kind of see, let me see, where is it at? The tackling. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Let me zoom that in for y'all. Tackling. So they missed 14 tackles in this game. That is something to note because that is the toughest team they faced, and they did miss a lot of tackles. Again, they're going to keep everything in front of them and limit the explosive plays, but we do have guys that can make you miss, and we have a lot of guys that can make you miss, and they're going to have to do that. And they're going to have to make multiple guys miss to break big plays. Pass rush right there, 63.3. Coverage, 61.9. Special teams, again, for them isn't excellent. They had a field goal blocked, but again, it was they Washington had 12 men on the field. I don't think the 12th man even contributed to the play. However, they did block a field goal. So there's an opportunity there. Nebraska, again, has a few blocks on the season in terms of blocking field goals, and that's going to be huge for momentum because Nebraska can't make field goals. And that is our big issue. But you see it right here, the pass block grade, 52.8 and 53. All right. So there's opportunities there for Nebraska to generate a pass rush. But Nebraska's going to have to try to generate a pass rush with 5 people, 4 or 5 people. And then so that way they can get more creative with their bodies and spread them out across the field. Monungai, trying to keep Monungai from forcing us into the box too much. So the big key, in my opinion, to this game is going to be getting out to a early lead, multiple score early lead, and making them kind of play into our game a little bit more, maybe forcing them to have to stretch the field a little bit more, maybe forcing them to have to make some mistakes. You gotta take advantage though, and you gotta be opportunistic to get force mistakes from Rutgers team though. So it's going to have to be a lot of scheme and a lot of individual players making good plays. So go to the comments here. Dion, I'm not calling for his firing, but one, all we can do is punt. It's not a good look. Yeah. Bushini, by the way. How big has Bushini been, man? That big tackle, fantastic. Illinois Purdue QB looked about the same, but Illinois QB looked alive. Yeah. Altmaier really didn't have to do too much. They put him in great advantageous situations. But the Purdue QB, now, when talking about how he graded out against Nebraska, and there's been a big fuss about him being the number 1 graded quarterback in the Big Ten, and I get it. But the thing is, if you understand how PFF grades, especially at the quarterback position, they don't take it on a result basis. And let me explain what I mean, because that sounds a little wrong. But they take it on a throw by throw basis. Okay, so you look at Hudson Card's day. Hudson he was 18 for 25, right? But he had 2 drops, according to PFF, 2 drops. So his adjusted completion percentage then goes to 80%. But the thing is, you get a better grade if you make the right read in your progression. You get a better grade if your throw's on target. It doesn't matter about what your receiver does after the play or anything like that. And interceptions don't kill your score, right? Of course, they hurt, and it's a negative marker. It's an automatic negative marker. But to counter that, one of the main positive markers is a throw for a first down. And out of his 25 passes, he had 8, and out of his 18 completions, he had 8 first downs. And so when you lower it down to a quarterback who didn't do a ton, didn't have to force the ball down the field a ton, made a lot of easy throws, you can see how that grade can get raised up because easy throws, he's probably putting them on target. Like I said, he didn't have to do too much, didn't have to take many risks. That's going to help his QB grade. QBR is like QBR and ESPN and stuff like that, and their specific quarterback ranking is based on a play result basis. How much your quarterback contributed in those plays. For instance, situationally, it even comes down to situation, which PFF is not situational. Situation in terms of it's 3rd and 6, right? Did you run for that first down? Or did you get sacked, right? It's did you cause a penalty? Like those type of things go into that as well. So PFF is just a specific grade in terms of throw by throw basis. They're going to grade each individual throw and not the entirety of the game. So just to explain that there a little bit more for y'all. Let me see. Dive into some of y'all's comments here. See if I'll drop any more. And again, drop your game predictions in here as well as we dive into those. Okay. Now let's talk real quick. I just want to touch on the Micah Mazuka situation and Tommy Hill, by the way, showing up top corner on the depth chart. Mazuka listed as a backup, of course. So Mazuka will be a backup this week. It is very unfortunate, the situation that's going on with him, without me diving in too much into the details. I don't know if I'm allowed to share all of the details. So, but it's just really friction within the offensive line room. And that right there to me is when you have personal relationships affecting kind of on the field, that's when it gets a little bit, dicey, I guess. And that's where, Frost, one of the things I disliked about Frost is he really let personal relationships impact how he coached and who he played and who he didn't play. He would stick with the guys he liked versus the guys he didn't. It changes how you coach people, etc. But Mazuka is a player that Nebraska needs on the field. So I'm hoping this kind of works towards him being able to get in there and get back, into the starting rotation and being able to play his position that he wants, and keeping him in an advantageous situation. He's a senior. He wants to get to the NFL. So hopefully all of that can resolve. We can get Micah Mazuka on the field because this team is much better when Micah Mazuka is on the field. During the bye week, I'm going to do some film breakdown on the current, Gunnar Gatula, the current offensive line and some of those guys who have stepped in and just kind of tell you where their pros and cons are. But Mazuka is a hard-nosed, physical player who he's just a trench guy, right? Like it's in his nature. You listen to him talk, the way he is at the podium. Like I said, I posted this on Twitter after I watched one of his interviews. Like he just looked like he wants to throw that, like his energy he wants to throw that damn podium because he's just got so much energy and like he just likes to get out there and let it loose on the field. So hopefully Micah Mazuka get back mixed back in there. Jesus, I'm sorry. And then Bly Hill's another one. So with Bly Hill, I'm unsure where he's coming along with in terms of his injury, growth or recovery and kind of where he's at with that. So it'll be interesting to see, but he's a sophomore. So I'm wondering if they're trying to maybe kind of keep this a little bit conservative with his injury management, injury recovery, because again, coming into the season, it was supposed to be, 2-3 weeks maybe. And here we're going on week 5. So what's going on, John Diadamo? I appreciate you hopping in here. By the way, Michigan Live is going on right after this one over on the Michigan channel, doing a great job over there. They have great stuff going on. So y'all be sure to stop by there. Feeling 9-3 for Nebraska. I think that's completely fair. Right now I'm at 8-4. I had 8-4 coming into the season. And but until I'm forced off of that, we'll see. This Rutgers game, though, I did have predicted as our first loss of the season coming into the year. So if Nebraska can win this, they're right on track with my prediction. So, and then a couple of the games look a little easier later in the season. Wisconsin than we originally thought. Wisconsin, USC. So maybe Coach Raiola pushed to do better, and he's seen it as more of an attack. I was surprised with rule comments yesterday at Mazuka had another incident last Wednesday. Sounds like a repeat offender. Hope it gets sorted out. Yeah, it's hard. Like I think the thing about this is, coming out with the suspension and then really kind of giving no indication of what was going on, and then hearing him come out and say this is kind of like a shock to people, because of course, like it's we hear about the incident at the Colorado game, but we don't get any specifics. And we hear about the incident last week, and we don't get any specifics. Um, it's very much a not seeing eye to eye thing, and it does have to do with how he's being coached as well. So, um, there's some stuff like intertwined in this that I think could, if it was pulled back, this could be a lot easier to deal with. Emotions and stuff like that, and personal relationships get involved, and that's kind of where it goes south. But um, like I said, I'm trying not to dive into too much specifics because I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to touch on. So specifically, true, but there are times when the truth can't stop the filing of a lawsuit. Diadamo, Marquette, you guy or Marquette? All right, cool. Let me stop sharing here. 1 second. Let me pull this up for y'all real quick. One thing I do want to pull up here, and by the way, if you haven't, if you just hop in here late and you didn't see our Big Ten show, it's in the comments. We're going to be doing a live watch party for the Rutgers game. So myself and my co-host, Sonny Verma from Locked On Illini, we're going to be doing a live watch party. So if y'all want to hop in there, watch the game, watch along the game, pull it up on your phone or whatever and see our reactions. Like I said, it's a good time, and we'll pull people in. Might try to get Aaron on from, the Rutgers reporter, might try to get him on and have some guests throughout there as well. So, all right. Let me pull this up here as well, just because I'm bad at this. And I had mentioned channel memberships before, but I'm just going to kind of explain how I wanted to do them, because they are going to be, the join button isn't there yet, but it will be. I'm kind of learning how to do this. But the channel memberships, we got the big red loyalist tier. That'll be $2.99, right? And there's going to be perks for each one of these. The Black Shirt Brigade will be $4.99, and the 5-star Corn Connoisseurs will be $9.99. And it's anything helps, even as much as a like or a view helps. So by all means, don't feel obligated to do any of this. But it does help me out. I do this full time, and YouTube ad revenue is not, it's finicky, man, and it's not the best. So this does help it out, but I'll also give you perks. I plan on doing more content. I plan on doing viewer requested content. So if you want something specific, I'll make that available to members. I'll do membership hangouts, members only lives, and certain stuff like that. But I'll also be doing kind of all 22 film breakdowns if y'all want me to specify a player and or just go through our opponent's film in a little more detail. So those things will be available for y'all there if you do want to check those out. And again, I will let y'all know when I have those fully available. But I just want to give you an update on the live, just kind of how those tiers work, and that I am going to be putting extra overtime to make sure that you get your money's worth on whatever you end up doing. So, and also, of course, if you don't mind liking the stream here, I appreciate that as well. Now, let me go ahead and look at Nebraska's PFF grades throughout this season so far. And this is the last thing I will go over here. So we looked at Rutgers. Now here's Nebraska's. So trying to look at some of the, you see right here. So let me go back. Sorry. All right, cool. So the Illinois game, 73.02, 76.6. Coming over to this, right? Pass blocking grade. If you look at it against Northern Iowa, pass blocking grade was excellent. Of course, it is Northern Iowa. You come down to Illinois, 56.1, Purdue 60.8. So the pass blocking definitely still needs some work, because Illinois wasn't a team that got a ton of pressures on the quarterback, and they had the ability to pressure. Purdue is also a team that's not going to really kill you in terms of their ability to get to the pass rush. And then Rutgers, of course, is going to be a team that has had little ability to get to the quarterback last week, and really didn't have any kind of pressure into the backfield. And so this number is going to hopefully need to increase, because we do need to see this increase a little bit more. You see, when the switch happened and we kind of switched that left side of the line and we got Gunnar Gatula in there, it kind of dropped off a little bit. So you look at the receiving grades here. Let me go, where's it at? Let me get over to Now this right here, this is what I wanted to point out is tackling and special teams, of course, 33.4 over there. I see that looming. But tackling right here, um, surprisingly low grade against Purdue in the tackling department. And so that's rare to see from this team. They're usually sure-handed as far as tackling goes. So I really want to see against a Rutgers team that, has Kyle Monangai and stuff like that. Nebraska's tackling is going to have to be very, very sure. Um, they do a good job. Nebraska does a good job of getting hats to the ball, right? As soon as one player stands a play up, they get a lot of guys over there. But the problem is when you isolate, if they get Nebraska isolated, if they're attacking one side of the field and they get them isolated in a one-on-one or something like that, Nebraska is really going to have the ability to cover an open field because if Rutgers starts getting any explosive plays or anything like that, then good luck stopping them because if they're not a very explosive offense. They're not a very explosive team, but if they do start getting those, that's going to set up their run game. If they get you out of the box and set up common on guy, good luck. Um, Now, run defense here has looked better, 75.1, which isn't a bad grade at all. Defensive grade 76.1 last week after the 63.9 against Illinois. Again, Illinois put Nebraska in a very tough situation in a lot of instances. 58.5 coverage grade, 58.7 against Northern Iowa, sorry, and then you come over here, the coverage grade 75.8 against Purdue. That's going against Rutgers. They're going to want to do a lot of the same thing against Nebraska, kind of that Purdue and Illinois did in terms of just making the easy passes, making easy throws. So our coverage needs to be sticky, and they're going to have to, like I said, they're going to have to rely on their ball skills if they want to get takeaways. They're going to have to rely on, their ability to punch at the ball and rip at the ball to get turnovers. And I think if Nebraska can force a turnover in this game, right, they win this game. The biggest thing too, third down. I think where's it on my notes? Washington was, I think, 2 of 12 on third down, and if I remember correctly, on third down, Rutgers was like 7 of 15. I can't remember exactly, but that was what won them the game, right? And what Illinois did against Nebraska, there was one drive against Illinois where they had about 4 or 5 third down conversions. And that's where those sustained drives come in. Nebraska needs to get off the field on third down, especially early in this game, and they need to get off to a quick start. Now, the first 3 weeks, I think it was, we scored in the first drive each of those games. Last 2 weeks, we haven't. I think this is a game where we need to get out ahead and hopefully get ahead by multiple scores because that is going to be where you put Rutgers in a situation to potentially make mistakes. And it's a situation they haven't been in. If they're behind for a lot of the game and you try to make them maybe force some throws with Calic Manis or try to take them away from the run game as much as possible. They're not a team that's going to go away from the run, but you try to take that away from as much as possible when you get their back against the wall. And the opportunities are there for Nebraska to be able to make this a game. And we need our pass rush to improve. We need our pass rush to be better from our front four. And that's a recipe right there. Our front four, talent-wise, is better than Rutgers' front four. Performance-wise, it needs to be better as well. So, what a lawsuit? Who's suing who? I'm confused. Sorry. Anyone who can pay a filing fee can play reference. I must have missed something in here. Sorry about that, guys. I was talking football. All right, cool. So yeah, that was the last thing I wanted to touch on there. So just so y'all know what I got coming up this week. Again, could they have Ben Scott try to long snap? Put me out there long snapping. Honestly, like at this point, what's it gonna hurt? Put somebody out there. It's not gonna get worse than it is. And again, Washington makes some of their field goals. They win that game. But again, I can't really point to that and look at that as an opportunity for Nebraska to be able to go out there and take advantage because Nebraska can't kick field goals either. So, Brett Favre sued Pat McAfee for telling the truth about him. Sounds pretty Favre-esque. He's not the greatest person in the world from what we learned about him in recent years. Prediction time, I'll go 35-27 Nebraska. I wanted to say 31, but let's be honest, we're not making a field goal. 20. The thing about 27 points for Rutgers, that's I think the game will be low scoring. Oh, well, just because the information, was shared with me by somebody and I don't have their permission, so I just don't wanna, overstep my boundaries in terms of that. So that was the biggest reason, why, and also too, it's just um, like really kind of, feeds in the drama and could start a lot of sidebar conversations that are probably, you tell one thing and then people kind of run with it and go from there. But the biggest reason is because it was told to me in confidence, and I just don't want to put that out without getting the go ahead from the other person. So, but I wanted to just try to touch on it a little bit to kind of give y'all somewhat of a perspective, um, and a perspective that hopefully I think what I'm looking at and what I'm hearing, it lends to Mazuka getting an opportunity, of course, back in his starting spot, um, before too long, of course. So sorry about that, guys. I was talking football. Thanks for clarifying. Okay, yeah, on the score prediction. So with this one, I think the game might be short, and I think the possessions might be short. I could be wrong. Um, if 27, if they Rutgers puts on 27 on Nebraska, though, I'm gonna have a struggle with that. If we win, it's fine. But if they put up 27 on Nebraska, I might have a struggle with that. I was thinking that kind of in a 27-17 type of game. Um, that doesn't oh crap, that requires a field goal. All right, whatever. 24, no, 24. 21-17, whatever requires no field goals. 28-17. Um, that makes sense too. Can't fart on your sources. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I value the relationships more than just being quick to put out information. That's all. So it's trust me, I'd love to share. I agree possessions will be fewer. Nebraska 24, Rutgers 16. We go for 2-3 times. I love it. I love it. I love the sidebar outlandish predictions, but watch it come true. Watch us hit 5 field goals. Justin doesn't want to be accused of being a drama. I try to stay out of drama as much as possible. I just want, like I said, I just want to talk football. I love talking football. I love breaking down football. So that's what I like to do here. So hopefully y'all are cool with that. But that'll do it for me here on today's show. The crowd should be in it. I think they spent all their energy on CU and were flat for Illinois. Um, yeah, and Illinois did a good job of every time Nebraska would get the crowd back in it, taking them back out of it. Um, and what Illinois did was they came in with a game plan that they wanted to attack. And again, Nebraska was not able to get them out of that. And when I'm talking about certain situations where 85, had that touchdown where he rolled out, kind of on that little, he motioned over, came out of the right side of the line, off the line, and kind of rolled out to the back of the end zone. It was wide open, but they set that up throughout the game, first off. But even on that drive, the 6 plays prior to that, they went to a similar look twice. One of them was called back due to a penalty, but they had a play, 2 passing plays there where he went on a route, and they also had one where they brought him over run blocking, but each formation and each one looked identical. And then when we got down the goal line, they snuck him out there because everybody bit in on the play fake, and he was just open in the back of the end zone. Same thing happened with 94 later. That was all set up by the fact Nebraska couldn't take him out of the game plan. If Nebraska takes them out of the game plan, they're not able to set those plays up. Those plays don't happen. There was a 4th and goal. There was those plays don't happen. So that's why it's important for Nebraska to get Rutgers out of their game plan early. But we saw Illinois is very good. They went in there to Penn State and made that a battle. I mean, they don't have that bad snap at 1st and goal and basically the goal line. That's a whole different game. That's a tied game there going in the end of it. So, all right. Let me see if we get any more comments. If not, I'm going to conclude the show. Again, if y'all want to, subscribe, like the show. But if you want to subscribe, I'm going to, again, have Aaron Brightman on, Rutgers reporter. We're going to break down the game in detail. If you want to join the watch party, get over to the Big Ten Show at Big Ten Show on YouTube. And if you want to, be up to date on all the latest videos, and also if you want to get the link to the live stream and stuff like that and updates, you can follow me on X Twitter at _H-Town-Husker. I'll be there. You guys questions, do whatever, and stay up to date for the latest and greatest in Husker football. And no drama, hopefully. So that'll do it for me here, though. I appreciate everybody who stopped in here, joined the conversation per usual. You're awesome. I appreciate my supporters who always drop comments on the videos, pop in here, drop likes on the videos, and are the notification squad that will jump on a video when I post it. So I appreciate each and every single one of you. And with that being said, I will see you in the next video. Peace.